We've already heard about change. Change is basically our big constant. Doesn't matter if it's recent climate change, temperature increase, geological change. This province will continue to change. What I've been trying to do is update our summary of what marine fishes are here in the province. And I hate to say it, but it's a never-ending project. I'm going to wrap it up this year for the most of the publications, but things will continue to change. New species will move in, some will move out, others may go extinct, some will be extirpated, wiped out from our region. Yeah, it's an ongoing project. And as Henry said, as well as everyone said, we are seeing a warming of the climate. Temperature anomalies since the 1970s to the 1950s are actually showing an increase in ocean temperatures, and this is data shamelessly lifted from NASA. And if change is happening, how are we detecting it? Well, we detect it by specimens donated by organizations like Archipelago Marine, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. We actually partner with Fisheries and Oceans to go out on their ships. This one is the W.E. Ricker. It's now decommissioned. I think it's as old as me. We go out on those ships and we get to pick through the catch to see new species or to collect new species for the museum's collection. And that really is why we're the center of this kind of research in BC, because we have the collection. If I say species X is in the province, I have a specimen to back it up. Not everyone can do that. So we are a center for excellence in fish research, and we are building on the work that was done by Alex Peden. He was my predecessor here in fish biology, passed away I think 2 years ago now. But I'm also building new connections with people at NOAA and Moss Landing Marine Laboratories, their shark research center. I've got students at UVic that have helped me out, but a big part of this is with Fisheries and Oceans. So now, we've had summaries of fish diversity here in BC. When I was a student back in undergraduate back in 1989, we were given Hart's Pacific Fishes of Canada as, and I hate to use the word Bible because I'm not religious, but it was basically the book for BC. Even in 1989, it was horribly out of date. It listed 325 species for BC, and it is now way underestimating our diversity. Bit by bit, through the years, there have been other summaries, a summary in 1993 by Graham Gillespie, and then Alex Peden produced summaries in 2000 and 2002, but you can slowly see their summary numbers going up. They also included a few hypothetical species, things that they thought would be here soon, but they included it just to hedge their bets. Ultimately, they've been proven correct. A lot of the fish they said will get here eventually have appeared. So that's really quite cool. But what you can see is there's an early period, and I just sort of runs off the chart here, of exploration where people have gone out collecting, depositing specimens in museums. And then there's a period of publication. Here we've got from 1999 to about, well, almost now really, there's another period of exploration. We've gone out on tanner crab surveys and we've harvested the bycatch for new species for BC. So it was an exploration phase with very little publishing. And in recent years, we've hit another publishing phase. But what you can see is since Hart's Pacific Fishes of Canada, 39 species were added in that 5-year period. 15 here, 23, and then it tapers off as you get into it. We're focusing more on exploration at that point, so there's very little published. It's not that new species weren't appearing, we just weren't publishing it. And now it's taken off again with a whole bunch of new species being published for BC. So I think what we're getting is a really good baseline for what is actually here for native species, cold water fauna of British Columbia's coast. And this is including deep sea as well. This is not just intertidal or a couple of 100 meters depth. We have gone down 2 to 3 kilometers in depth. Well, not quite 3, but 2.5 kilometers in depth. There are still habitats out there that are underrepresented, including rocky habitat in the deep sea. We don't drop a trawl net down there for fear of snagging it, because once you lose a net at that depth, it's gone. So we do have a fish that's being described, the paper's actually in the works right now, of a new skate. And our specimen is bigger than your average coffee table. But this was normally a fish found over rocky habitat. We don't normally sample that, so we were just blindly lucky that we got that fish. Brand new species. We found them within the last few years. We found them in Alaska, BC, and down the coast in the United States. So it's hard to believe that something the size of a coffee table went undetected for this long. So what we're planning to do for the next little while, I've got a paper that's basically in collaboration with a couple of students at UVic, and this will be the last big one that we'll publish out of this work. We'll add another 8 species and some crazy range extensions within the province as well for our fauna. So that's 8 new fish for BC. And the other project that I'm planning to do this year is actually make a research portal gallery. So it'd be like a who and where for all of these new species. So instead of keeping all of this information just to the academic sphere, it's actually going to be out there for the entire province. Anyone can see this. Anyone can see how pretty or ugly these fish are. Some of them are ugly. But we'll make this available to a broad audience. So what do they look like? Fish aren't spiders. People don't cringe usually. Some of the deep sea fish might make people cringe, but down at the bottom here, you can see a scale bar. Fishes have scales, pun intended. That'll give you a relative size for these fishes. Now, on the big end, the luvar, I'm not kidding, is about that big. And it basically looks like a tuna with a bad headache. So I'll sort of try to go through chronologically here. The half moon was collected in 1979. Alex Peden published, I think that was in 81. So that one's been known. I think it's only one specimen for BC, and that came up from probably the California coast. So yeah, there's an example of a fish from the south that just happened to range into BC, as far as we know, only once. That will be a great canary in the coal mine if climate change really warms our coastal waters, because we may see those more frequently. I'm actually waiting for the first leopard shark, because they're in Puget Sound occasionally, so we may get a new shark in our fauna as well if climate warms just a little bit. This sea robin was found back in '98, and it's been in our collection and nobody published on it. It wasn't even identified until last year, and I looked at the collection and said, well, what is that doing in BC? It's probably not. Sea robins generally are tropical. Well, I took a careful look at it, and it turned out it's a species that's brand new for BC. It's a deep water fish, it's cold water, so it's probably been here for a long time. It just sat undetected. We'll publish that one this year. So that's sat undocumented for a long time. The North Pacific Argentine, that one also sat, that was in a collection that came to us from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Again, the label on the jar said unidentified fish. And I hate to admit it, but it was dead easy to identify. There are very few of those in coastal waters. So it sat here, and it just took a chump like me to go along and say, oh, I know what that is. And then now it's public knowledge. But the Argentine and the sea robin are cooler water fish, so I wouldn't consider those any sort of indication of climate change. The other two, the luvar and the triggerfish, I definitely think would be an indicator of climate change. If they show up regularly, our oceans are warming. The luvar and triggerfish showed up during the warm water blob. I think that was 2012 to 2015. We got these guys in 2014. Normally they're found down around Baja. So that's a huge range extension. The triggerfish was found perfectly happy, as happy as a fish ever is, swimming normally right on Vancouver Island's coast. And it was some young guys caught it with a dip net. So that fish has come a long way north. They are known as far north as Alaska on really warm years. The luvar was found near Masset, and that probably was swimming in Alaskan waters. So that's a huge range extension. So if fish like that show up on a regular basis, then we will definitely be seeing evidence of climate change. What's next? We don't know. As I said, I'm hoping for a leopard shark. We'll publish the results of what we've got right now, and then make it available on a broad audience in the research portal. But while I'm claiming to wrap this project up this year, if something new shows up, I won't hesitate to publish. So, thanks.